Welcome to The Show Off, the podcast where we make each other sit down, shut up, and watch episodes of our favorite TV shows and then explain, or be forced to listen to, why it's top-tier television. This show is for anyone who has ever wanted to go on endless tangents about their favorite shows, but their friends and family don't want to hear it. We get it. Ditch those losers and come hang out with us instead. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Campy.
And this is The Show Off.
Previously on the Show Off podcast, we are going to be watching the series finale episode of one of my favorite shows, Barry on HBO. I'm going to follow my dreams.
These are my dreams, Dad.
You're an assassin, bro.
It's murder time.
So let's move on to our series finale, season 4, episode 8.
And now is
wow.
Wow.
Directed again by Bill Hader.
Now is where I get confused.
Yes. I realized watching this back, I probably should have prepared you a bit better.
I mean, honestly, I don't mind. I liked the, blindness of it going in. I liked trying to figure out what the fuck was going on. So
yeah,
I'm excited for your breakdown.
Yes. I should have told you. I should have warned you. And I'm going to tell the audience this, at least so they know. This is many, many years later. At a minimum,
I did figure that
10
out.
or 12
I
years
did
later.
figure that one out by the age of the child.
Yes. That's a bit of a giveaway.
Yeah.
All right. So scene opens and we have Fuchs now tatted up, sitting in a...
Oh, did he not have tattoos before?
He did not.
Oh, okay.
No, so he has a bunch of tattoos now. He is just taking a bath in this nice, luxurious looking bathtub.
It looks swanky
yeah,
in there.
It's
Looks
very
nice.
swanky. He's got black nail polish on, which is a nice touch. Very much like it. And he gets a call on his phone from NoHo Hank.
Yep.
Who is offering Barry to Fuchs as a peace offering.
Yes.
Yeah. So
some shit has gone down.
A lot of shit has gone down. Hank also has Sally and Sally / Barry's son.
Yes.
Hostage.
Yeah. So I have several questions I wrote down in
Yes.
succession at the beginning, at the top of this episode. And I wrote, okay, Kusano is bad, ? Barry has a family with Sally, ? How much time has passed? Which, yeah, again, we figure out later. It's 8 to 10 years.
Yes.
Yeah, those were my main questions going in. And and Fuchs is the bad guy now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And one of those questions, Gene is bad ? I genuinely want to know what your opinion of Gene is before we talk about the final scene of this episode.
Okay. You want right now?
No. We'll build up to that.
I was going to say, I was like, okay.
But yeah, so basically a lot has gone on. Fuchs and Hank obviously have bad blood between the two of them. Fuchs makes the comment that if he goes to Hank's office, Hank's just going to shoot his ass off.
Yeah.
So yeah, clearly there's a lot of bad blood going on. And somehow Sally got wrapped up in all this with the Chechen mob. She does have a family with Barry. They do have a son together.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're leverage, right? They're hostages.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And Fuchs is not interested in meeting with Hank at all until he sees Barry's son.
Mm-hmm.
And
or he doesn't even see him. He gets
show
told
him,
over the
yeah,
phone.
Well, they show him on FaceTime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have thoughts about this, which we'll get into.
Okay.
Because
this is going back to their weird relationship.
The weird relationship between
Yeah.
Fuchs and Barry, and then a comment that Fuchs makes later, which directly contradicts some actions. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
The one thing I do want to call out, which is a nice touch, which I don't think you would have noticed. So yeah, he's tatted up, and one of the tattoos that he has is a raven on his chest.
I would not have noticed.
Because he somehow develops this persona of being this really hard, bad dude that the whole LA police department's out to get, and they start calling him the Raven.
The Raven.
He just owns it and gets
hilarious.
a tattoo of a raven on his chest. I love it.
Yeah, that I definitely would not have got that.
Yeah. So yeah, we're in a hostage situation. Hank is in this room now. We cut over to Hank with Sally and John, which is the son.
Yep. Can I ask a question real quick about the previous Fuchs in the bath? So at this point, are we meant to believe that Fuchs wants Barry dead?
Yes.
Okay.
There's also bad blood between Barry and Fuchs.
Barry and Fuchs, and then also Fuchs and NoHo Hank.
Yeah, and Barry and NoHo Hank also have bad blood.
Everybody has beef.
Yes.
Everybody has beef. Okay, great.
Everything is spiraled out of control.
I also wrote, are they trying to trap Fuchs? Like Hank, I mean, and like the mobsters, based on this call that they're having?
I mean, yeah, that's at least the question that Fuchs has. Is this just a trap?
Right. Okay.
So, and I mean, that's part of the tension that's being set up here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't know who has the upper hand, because at this point, it doesn't really feel like anybody does.
Okay. Yeah. No, and like that's helpful to know that basically like everybody has beef with everybody, because I was trying to figure out like who's on whose side, who's not on whose side, and it turns out everybody's on their own side and they hate everybody else.
Yes.
So that makes a lot more sense. All right.
It's a very good way to put it.
Yeah.
So we cut over to the hostage situation. So we're in the room with Hank, Sally, and John, who's the son. And everybody looks worse for wear. Like Hank.
Yep, they look rough.
Yeah, he's like covered in soot or something. Like I don't even remember what happened.
What happened the previous episode? Yeah.
He just looks like shit.
Yeah.
Sally looks exhausted and defeated. And Hank opens with this line saying to Sally, "You came to LA looking for him, didn't you? Let me guess, you were in a bad place and you felt like he was the only one who could help you." And there's just this pause, and you know that there's an element of truth to that, right?
Sure.
Where there's almost like this solidarity between Hank and Sally in this moment, that they see in each other, of both of them dependent on Barry.
Okay.
And feel betrayed by him in some kind of way.
Okay.
At least that's the vibe that I pick up.
Sure. You would know better than me, because I did not have the full relationships context. Yeah. I did make a note of like, oh, she came to LA looking for Barry, so they're not together currently.
I can't remember everything that happened in season 4. I need to go back and rewatch it, but yeah, something
but like they were
happened
physically apart from each other.
To separate.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, Hank basically says like good luck and goes to leave the room.
He says it's not for him to decide what happens to them.
Yes, he does say that,
which I wrote down because I thought it was weird.
Yeah, because, I mean, again, Hank is the one holding them hostage. Yeah. He should be the one with the power.
Exactly. I was like, what's your deal, dude?
Mm-hmm. But we know. Hank knows. Mm-hmm. Barry's coming.
Barry's a-coming.
Barry's coming. And there is a fear to that, right?
Okay.
Just like the mythos of this man.
Hank is scared of Barry.
Yeah, he's scared of Barry. And yeah, there's just this huge tone shift too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I wrote down too, like, to need... Like, there's this subtext that to need Barry means that you're in a very desperate place.
Okay.
And especially for Sally, which I am going to give you more background and history into Sally in a little bit. But it's really impactful for Sally to kind of realize that she is in such a desperate place that she needs someone as horrible as Barry, essentially, right?
Okay, so at this point, we've established that
killer.
Barry is a bad guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's that's part of the theme of the show is Barry a good or a bad guy? And Barry wants to believe he is the hero. And that really plays out.
Big time.
In
We're
this
going to get into that. I have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I should also mention Sally does know, I can't remember exactly how much she knows, but she is aware that Barry is a killer.
Okay, I assumed that.
Yeah.
Because she talks a little bit later too about also killing someone.
Yeah, we'll talk about Sally's history.
Cool.
Yeah, Hank says then, Sally asks what's going to happen to us, and Hank says that's not for me to decide.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're kind of left with that dramatic scene. So yeah, cut to Barry at a Walmart.
Bro, this took me out. This took me out. I rewound several times, partially because I was writing notes, but also because it was fucking funny. And every time I rewound it, I caught something new that was funny.
Okay, you probably caught way more than I caught. Go off.
Well, okay, so he's in like a Walmart or something. Do we know where are they at this? Are they still in LA?
We're in LA. We're back in
LA. This store has a guns section, a counter.
It is a Walmart.
Yeah.
Which Walmarts do have gun sections.
True. I I temporarily forgot that, but yes. So he walks into this store, and he goes up to the counter and he just says guns. That's it. Then the girl behind the counter is like, okay, like type of gun, like, and then they just smash cut. Is that the right?
Yeah, smash cut.
Smash cut to him walking through the store with a fucking automatic rifle on his back through a toy aisle. Through like a children's toy aisle. There's like multiple.
There's two ARs on his back.
Okay, even better. There's two. He's got two guns strapped to his back. He's walking down this toy aisle. And again, it's another one of these long shots. They don't cut. They hold. He's walking down the toy aisle. There's like children and mothers in this aisle, like looking at toys. He walks around multiple people, and no one seems to notice.
Cares.
Nope, nobody cares. I wrote God So America.
I wrote something America, something desensitized to guns, something fuck yeah.
Yeah. He exits the store. It's still the same take. He exits the store.
Take.
There's some fun lighting out. It's like red lighting out in the store. He gets in the car. Have we cut yet? No, we haven't. He gets in the car and he like can't get in the car because the guns are on his back. He like doesn't take off the guns to get in the driver's seat of the car, and he kind of like rattles around for a second before he can get the door shut, and then it finally cuts. It's so good.
It's so good. It is so good. So he has the two ARs on his back.
This is like the one comedy beat this entire episode, basically.
Which I am going to touch on in a second. So
thank you for letting me do that.
Yes.
That was gold.
It's a great moment. He has the two ARs on his back. He has a whole magazine. Like his belt is just covered in magazines. He's got a pistol strapped to his leg. I forget what he all has, but it's an arsenal.
Mostly you notice the automatics on his back. But yeah, you can tell he's kitted up.
Yes. And it's very much he's about to go Rambo on everybody's ass.
Yeah.
And then he gets into the car.
And it's like, this is funny, remember?
But as Amanda pointed out, that is our only beat of comedy in this entire episode.
They repeat it a little bit later when he gets out of the car.
Oh, see, I don't even
It's like a hot
that.
second.
Yeah.
They basically repeat the same joke of like him getting out of the car and also struggling to get out of the car because he has the guns on his back.
Would.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, it cuts from that to our title card, and I don't know if this is the only episode, but it is one of the only episodes without the music.
No music.
No music. And that is the indicator that this episode is not about comedy. It is not fun anymore. There's nothing exciting.
Despite the comedy bit we just did.
Yes. It is a serious episode. Yeah. All the bombacity has left.
Right. We're about to get into the real shit.
Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go to the next scene. We are watching a newscast. We're with Gene and Gene's friend, who I don't really care about. He's just there.
Oh, yeah. Who is this guy?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay. I wrote a question that was like, is this his lawyer? Is it his publicist, manager, something like that?
Of business type relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was getting lawyer vibes, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's not really important.
It's not really important.
Yeah.
He's just there.
He's there.
And Gene's looking worse for wear as well. His hair is all grown out. It's pure white at this point.
Everybody looks
beard.
not great in this episode, except for Fuchs, I would say. Looks
he's
fine.
the only one that's like thriving.
Normal, yeah.
And the press statement that they're watching is about an old murder, and Gene is being accused of it.
Yes, the Janice Moss murder case.
Yes. So to give context to those who haven't seen the show, including you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Janice Moss was a detective with the LAPD.
Oh, okay.
She was investigating the Ryan Madison case.
Okay.
And without giving too much away,
she
dies, not at Gene's hand.
Yeah, I figured that one out.
Yes.
By the end.
Yeah.
Also kind of, we'll talk about the ending later.
Yes.
But I kind of figured out some of the context from that too.
I am going to spoil this bit because I think it'll help kind of
Hit me.
The ending will hit a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Barry is the one who kills her.
Okay, yeah. I think I did get that from the episode too.
Yeah, so Jean and Moss were dating.
Yeah.
Series of events, Barry kills Moss.
Cool.
But yeah, Jean is being set up to look like the killer.
Right.
But we also hear in this press conference that he is accused of having manipulated Barry into murdering Moss.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, as we were talking about before in the pilot, that Fuchs is Barry's manipulator on one side of his life. So Jean is the manipulator on the other side of his life?
Yep.
Is that just kind of the parallel we're doing?
Yeah, and it's kind of a twist of cruel irony that
he went looking for freedom in this new thing, and he just found another person to control him.
But I would say this was a moment where Barry was actually not taking direction when he made that decision.
When he made the decision to kill
Moss.
Janice. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, that question of does Barry need a director?
Ah.
Yeah, he kind of does. And it is ironic that Jean is the one being accused of directing Barry to do this.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It is a cruel twist of irony because he is Barry's director, just not in this particular case.
We also get that Barry's been gone for 8 years.
Yeah, he's been in hiding.
So my question to you is, like, prior to this episode, is that like a time skip we just did, or have we been sort of
the time skip happens, I think, halfway through season 4.
Okay.
Where Barry and Sally decide to run away together.
Okay.
And then it's fast forward, they have a son.
Okay.
And he's 10.
Okay.
And they're on the run.
Okay.
Yeah. But now they're all back in LA.
Yep.
So yeah, we go back to the hostage situation. We're back in the room with John and Sally, and here's another moment of direction I am going to call out, and I'm sure you have this written down. We get another long shot.
Very long.
Very long shot. We are looking over John's shoulder at Sally, and Sally is facing away from the camera and away from John. And I just love this. I love this so much. I love the direction here so much. So Sally's facing away, and John asks, he says, please tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
And without looking back, she kind of just glances over her shoulders, but she mostly stays looking forward.
Right. We can hear her, but we're not really seeing her yet.
Yes. And I think it says a lot about the relationship. This whole scene says a lot about the relationship the two of them have.
Okay.
Which again, Sally is not willing to face her son in this moment yet. And she tells him, we don't move around a lot because of my special job. It's because we're fugitives.
Right.
And she tells him, like, Barry escaped prison and she ran away with him. And he's like, well, why was he in prison? And because he killed a lot of people. And John immediately says, because he was a soldier?
Right.
No, because he was a murderer.
Yep.
And like, this scene hurts me so much. Like, that line from John just kills me.
Yep.
Because
he immediately
wants to believe Barry's a good guy.
Right. It's his dad.
Yeah, it's his dad. And like, he immediately finds a way to justify why his dad would kill people.
Right.
He was a soldier.
Right.
He had to kill people.
He immediately takes his mom at face value.
Yeah.
Like, mom's telling me something, I'm listening to her. And then tries to...
Let's find an excuse for this.
Right.
He killed people because he was a soldier. No, there's no excuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I add on to that a little bit?
Go ahead.
So I wrote down this line as well. But I wrote the rest of it, and she says, because he was a murderer and I'm a murderer too.
Yeah.
And I wrote, ma'am, this is a 10-year-old. But it's very well done, and it's very intense. And she's like starting to break down, but keep going.
Yeah. And the moment that Sally says that, and I'm a murderer too, is the first moment she turns around to face John.
Nice. I didn't write that down, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think like this show has a lot to say about truth, and this is going to be one of the central themes that I talk about. And I think this scene is emblematic of that.
Sure.
because it is about the idea of facing truth. And so Sally, starting by facing away from the camera and facing away from John, has her been facing away from the truth of the situation she's been in for
a
all
long
these
time.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And her finally turning around to face John, and even her saying, I'm a murderer too, is her finally really coming to terms with everything that has happened and with the consequences of it all.
Yep.
And her being willing to do that with her son.
Right. And like that this is a part of her that has irrevocably changed.
Yeah.
Because of whatever. I mean, I don't know all the details.
Yeah.
But
so to give a little bit of context, again, without spoiling too much, it was self-defense.
Okay.
And she was put into a situation because of Barry.
Well then, bruh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, now I have a lot more empathy for her.
Yeah. I think too, if I'm remembering correctly, she doesn't necessarily even know that she was put into that situation because of Barry. She just knows someone was trying to kill her.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So someone was going after Barry, and to get to Barry, they went after her. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. That's the gist of it anyway.
Cool.
People might yell at me in the comments. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Call me out. But yeah, so again, it just says a lot about truth here and whether or not we're willing to face it. And even in this moment, like you said, as Sally says, I'm a murderer too, but she killed a guy in self-defense.
Yep.
There's an element of truth there that she's still not facing, which is she's a victim.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she continues on this path where she's basically saying, I deserve whatever comes next.
Yeah.
I killed a man. I'm a bad person. I deserve bad things.
Yeah. I wrote down, she says, I'm a bad mother.
Yeah.
And that's when her kiddo gets up and hugs her.
Yes. And initially she doesn't hug him back. Like there's a moment where she pauses and she feels a little, and then she just grips onto him.
Yeah.
And just starts sobbing. And yeah, I think that is a pivotal moment for Sally where she realizes like he is the good thing left in her world and she needs to hang on to him, not Barry.
Okay. Yeah. I like it.
It's a transitional moment for her as she's starting to face the truth.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like this scene. I mean, again, I think it's one of those scenes that is also a love letter to acting. I think the show has a lot of those.
Because the camera doesn't move.
The camera don't move.
It depends on the acting.
It is static. It is static the entire time. Props to the kid as well. I think he does a good job.
Yeah, he does. And
I kind of was wondering in that scene if he was going to say anything after, she makes this confession, but he doesn't. He just hugs her,
yeah.
Which I think is the right call.
It's such a pure moment.
Yeah. You feel it. It's emotional and it hits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like he's a 10-year-old, so you're not really sure how he's processing all this.
Right.
You just know that he loves his mother.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And that's what he communicates.
Yeah.
To us and her.
The other thing that I want to bring up here, not that it's totally relevant to this scene, but I want to talk about Sally's character.
Okay. Hit me.
So one thing that we learned about Sally in season 2 is that prior to moving to LA, she was in an abusive marriage.
Okay.
And beat regularly. And then one night just packed her things and left when he was asleep and came to LA.
Never saw him again?
Oh.
Okay.
I'm not spoiling that. So she has this history of being abused. And as I pointed out in the first episode, you also see that she takes abuse.
Yep.
To a point. She does always have this moment where she walks away. And I'll get into this more as I talk about the theme. But the one thing to also know is that Sally lies to everybody about what happened with her abusive relationship. She tells everybody that she stood up to him. She yelled at him. She stood up for herself, and then she left.
Oh, okay. She has a cover story.
She has a cover story. And so we'll come back to that. But the other thing I want to talk about is, okay, I know you only got 2 episodes of Sally.
Yeah.
What is your opinion? I'm going on a completely side tangent tirade right now, but I have to get it out. Okay, that's what this podcast is for. What is your opinion of Sally?
What's my opinion of Sally? I guess it tracks that she's an abuse victim, that she's an abuse survivor, I guess, based on the kind of treatment we saw from her her reaction to the treatment from Jean in episode 1. In this episode, she seems to be much more confident, much more decisive. As you said, that she figures out her priority is John, and you know, we'll get into it later. She's done with Barry by this episode. So clearly she goes on a journey.
Yes.
Of development.
But do you feel positive or negative towards her?
I don't.
No sort of way?
Not really. Okay. I don't know.
So this will have to be, if you do end up watching the show. Yeah. We'll have to go into this more.
Okay.
I need to sound off real quick.
Go.
So many people hate Sally.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. And why?
I don't know. Okay, I do know, but it annoys the shit out of me. People hate Sally, and I have introduced people to the show who've stopped watching it because they hate Sally.
Oh no.
Yes. And in the fandom itself, you see a ton of people shitting on her.
Oh, no.
And the comments that I read are usually things like, well, she's just so annoying. She's just so self-absorbed. And all comments like this. And there were even interviews with Bill Hader where people point out, why is Sally so annoying? And he responds with, why do you hate her? Barry kills people.
Yeah.
Why is all this hatred directed at her? It falls into this pattern. Do you know any of the hatred that was thrown at Skylar in Breaking Bad?
No, I don't know a lot of Breaking Bad stuff.
Similar situation. And again, this is why I keep comparing Barry to shows like Dexter and Breaking Bad. Because, you know, Walter White, bad dude, doing bad things.
Yep.
Oh, it's so cool.
Yep.
Sorry to anybody who's a fan. I'm not trying to insult you. Okay, so the phenomenon with Breaking Bad. Right, you have the show, bad guy does bad things. Fuck yeah, we like bad guy doing bad things. And then you have Skylar, who comes in and she's the wet blanket. She's the annoying wife. She's getting in the way of him being cool and doing badass shit. Again, if you like this show, I'm not trying to insult you. I am being reductionist. But I'm trying to call it the point that, like, there is this trend. I want to say it's rooted in misogyny. Yeah. That people don't like the wet blanket character. And I get it to an extent.
Yeah.
I also hate wet blanket characters. I do not think people like Skylar or Sally are wet blankets. They don't know what's going on. And when they do find out what's going on, they try to make the best of the situation. They are normal people reacting in normal ways.
Right.
And people just pile hate onto them.
Yeah.
And for Sally, I see a lot of comments of like, well, she's so self-absorbed. And it's a sin to be annoying.
Yeah.
In media. And... no.
Well, and
I'm
nobody
sorry.
likes an annoying woman.
Yeah. And first of all,
annoying men.
Every character in this fucking show is self-absorbed.
Yeah.
Do not tell me that Sally's annoying because she's self-absorbed. Every single character is.
Yeah.
Fuchs obviously only cares about himself and uses, you know, his sympathy to try and manipulate Barry.
Yeah.
Barry only cares about coming across as a hero. Gene really only cares about his acting and what he has to offer to the world. Sally is not alone in being self-absorbed.
And arguably, in this context, in the finale, she is the least self-absorbed because she's concerned about John.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is kind of her, that kind of
sure.
remains her number one priority.
And with her whole arc, which we'll talk about at the end of this episode, she comes to a place where she really does dress herself down and humbles herself and in order to find her happiness.
Yeah.
She is the one who is on the path that is the right path ultimately in the end.
Yeah.
And yeah, the other thing with she's just annoying. Bitch, okay. We get Sally's backstory of her having been in this abusive relationship.
Yeah.
And once you get that backstory, you understand that all this vibrato that she has, all this confidence is a performance.
Yeah.
It is
She's constantly performing.
Yes. It's her way of coping with what happened to her in her past. And it is her way of trying to find strength in herself. And I am not going to fault a woman who is out here in the world on her own trying to support herself and follow her dreams. Who cares that she doesn't put up with other people's bullshit, including Barry? I get that we like him. He's the character we're following. She does not have to put up with his bullshit. And that's why she ultimately dismantles the manic pixie dream girl that she set up to become. And why she never is that.
Yeah.
She does not take bullshit.
Yeah.
Wow.
That also, can we say that also makes her the best actor in this series?
Oh, yeah.
So, irony, I guess, for all the people who don't like her. And turns out she's been like doing the most this whole time, performance-wise.
Hell yeah, she has. She's a damn good actress, like Sarah Goldberg and Sally.
Yeah,
okay, Sally is a good actress.
There's layers.
If you are a fan of the show, or you're someone who saw the show and you hate Sally, please try to explain this to me in a way I can understand.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand where the hate comes from.
Yeah. I think a lot of people, it just, I don't know. I feel like certain traits just get under people's skin.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of times it ends up being like they remind you of somebody in your life.
That was enough of the comments is like, well, Sally reminds me of this bitch bully that I had in high school. I'm like, okay, I kind of get that.
Right. But it's like then your opinion in that case is still, I don't want to say not valid, but like you're projecting.
Yes.
You know? So
anyway, I had to get that out because I don't understand it. I do not understand it. She's after NoHo Hank, she is my favorite character. Come at me.
Yeah.
I don't care. Actually, please do come at me because I want to know. I want to understand.
We want to fight. And y'all, just so you know, this won't be the last time that one of us defends a character that nobody else understands.
Definitely not.
No.
Definitely not.
A lot more to come.
So that was that scene. Sally and John have this moment.
Yep.
She tells John the truth as she sees it.
Right.
And he gives her a hug. And that's when the Chechen mobsters come in.
Yep.
And they take Sally away, leaving John in the room.
Yeah, that's right. At this point, I was also a little bit confused. Like, again, were these the mob guys or Fuchs guys? But it's the mob guys.
Yeah, we're still with the Chechens.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I wrote down in my notes, at this point, it should be abundantly obvious that everybody's life is worse because of Barry. With the exception of maybe Fuchs. Because he's, wealthy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But even so, I don't think Fuchs gets out of this okay. Yeah, so we move on. Fuchs is driving to meet NoHo Hank. I love this shot. It's Fuchs being driven, I should clarify. He's in the back seat, and the camera kind of just pulls focus onto him. I can't remember if they like pan in or something, but it's just this blue underlight is hitting his face.
Yep.
And he just looks...
Yeah, I also enjoyed this. I wrote IDKY, but I just got a strong John Wick vibe.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
and I think that's what the tension that's being built here is trying to set up. We're about to have an awesome gun battle. It's going to be really cool. It's Rambo. It's John Wick. It's going to be epic.
Yeah.
That's what we're being set up for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Fuchs is on his way to meet Hank, and we also see Barry racing off to what we can only assume is Barry driving to go to Hank as well.
Right.
So we're in the lobby. I call it the Cristobal lobby because there is a statue of Cristobal in the background, that gold statue.
Oh, okay. I got something to say about that, but continue.
And so we get a shot of NoHo Hank waiting in the lobby with a bunch of gunned up Chechen mobsters and his hostage Sally. And then we see Fuchs walking in with his gang of gunned up mobsters. So they both have their own gang, and they both are loaded and ready to go.
Big old show off.
Yes.
Showdown. This is the show off. That's not the show off.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
You just had like a panic moment.
I was like, wait, we can't align ourselves with the bad guys.
So yeah, Fuchs wants to see the kid as they're waiting for Barry, and he demands that John be brought out and shown to him, otherwise the deal's off. And so yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I still through the end of the episode, I could not figure out what he wanted with the kid. Like, why does he care?
Neither can I.
Oh.
And I think that's part of this ambiguity. Is what does Fuchs want with John?
Interesting.
Why does he care about John? What's his angle? So as we wait for John to be brought out, we get a great fucking monologue.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God.
Big one. Big one.
which I wrote down way too many lines of this, so hopefully I don't say the whole monologue.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's good, and it's, again, very reflective of the show as a whole. I think it pretty much summarizes one of the other central themes of the show. So yeah, he's talking to Hank, and he's basically scolding Hank as Hank says, like, oh, I got all of my success from seizing on luck.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I did write that. What did I write down? Yeah, he said it's seizing on luck is part of my profession.
Yes.
And I said, nice line.
And Hank responds with, right, yeah, you're a businessman, not some low-life killer. You got all this through hard work, seizing on luck. And, you know, he's being incredibly sarcastic here, which subtle. I think it's a subtle nod to just American business in general, that it's very cutthroat, that, like,
sure.
It's not pure. A lot of people in very real ways get hurt by American business and the way that it operates.
Big business.
Big, yeah.
Yeah.
Big. Big corporate business. And then he goes into this amazing monologue where he's like, oh, you're in denial. Denial is tough. And then he says, I used to think I was a soldier, ignoring the fact that I never fought in a battle my whole life. I fancied myself a mentor. I finally dropped all the bullshit and just accepted who I am, a man with no heart.
Yeah.
I love this so much because...
No, it's a wild monologue.
It's a great monologue. He goes on... Well, okay, sorry, I wrote a lot down. I'm just trying to keep it organized. He goes on to say, I'll walk away right now. You'll never hear from me again. All you have to do is admit you killed Cristobal. Admit that you fucked up. Admit that you were scared, that you hate yourself. That there's some days you don't think you deserve to live, and the only thing that'll make you forget is by being someone else. Goddamn.
Yeah. Yeah. It slaps.
Yeah, it slaps hard. And again, I think that's what the whole show is, you know, really pointing to, this idea of truth and what the truth is.
Admitting
and
the
when
truth.
you can't face it, you put on a mask and try to become someone else. You try to become the version of the truth you want to exist. And as Fuchs says, he dropped all the bullshit.
Okay.
He's thriving. He's happy. He knows who he is. He knows what his truth is. He's a man with no heart. Mm-hmm. I debate this.
I was going to say, what do you think about that concept and then where both of these characters end up?
I mean, I've seen some people talk about theories about this of, like, are the people who accept the truth the ones who win?
Right.
And
or the ones, the ones who walk away, at least.
At the very least, I would say, yeah, the ones who walk away. Well, I don't know, because it's just messy. It's just messy. And I think that's part of it, is like
it's not black and white.
No.
Right.
It's not black and white, and the versions of the truth vary with the perspective you're trying to take on to understand it. And
we were talking about this with Once Upon a Time too.
Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah.
And even I would argue Fuchs's version of the truth of him being a man with no heart is a lie, which I will explain.
Another cover up
in a second.
Yeah. Okay. Keep going.
I also want to point out, well, first of all, this whole monologue is just, again, Fuchs being a master manipulator, because it clearly rattles Hank.
Yeah.
Hank
Big
is
time.
sobbing by the end of this monologue.
Okay. I have a quick question. So was Hank in love with a man?
Yes. So to give context, Cristobal was, I believe, Bolivian competitor. So he was another mobster type with his own angle in LA.
Bro, this was Romeo and Romeo? Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
Yeah. And they eventually do get together.
Despite their gangs.
It's a very tragic story. Yeah. And in the end, Hank... well, it comes up. Hank had Cristobal killed. I'm not spoiling anything.
Had him killed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
did not kill him himself.
Not personally.
Was it Barry?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good guess though.
I mean, it kind of always comes back to him.
But I want to point out too, one of the directions for this is every time it cuts back to NoHo Hank listening to this monologue and slowly breaking down.
Yep.
You see over his right shoulder the golden statue of Cristobal, and over his left shoulder one of the mobsters with a gun.
Yep.
And you just have this setup of the angel on his shoulder and the devil.
Ooh.
But the angel he had murdered.
Bruh.
And is nothing but a statue now. He's just a symbol. This hollow thing that represents a fraction of the man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's supposed to be Hank's angel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. To me, that shot just hits so hard, especially with all the context between the two of them.
Right. I definitely didn't catch any of that because I didn't have that context.
You wouldn't.
But that's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's good. It's really good. So John is brought out as Hank is crying, and Fuchs looks at him. Did you clock this look? Do you have any notes on how Fuchs looks at John?
At John? I just noticed that it was weird.
It's a weird look.
Yeah.
And I wrote down, I would describe it as something between rage and hunger.
Oh.
There's just such a weird emotion. Like, Stephen Root does such a good job of, I don't even know what he's trying to convey, but it gets across that you're just like, there is some weird ass tension here.
Yeah.
And the way that John looks back at Fuchs. Okay, you're a 10-year-old boy.
Yeah.
You're being held hostage.
Yeah.
Your mom was just aggressively pulled away from you by a bunch of men with guns.
Yeah.
You have just been dragged into a lobby where there's even more men with guns.
Yeah.
And one of them is looking at you incredibly intensely.
Yeah.
You're a 10-year-old boy.
Uh-huh.
He looks back at Fuchs with no expression. None. That's Barry's son.
Yeah. I knew we were getting there.
Yeah. And it's just so great of like being able to see Barry in him. And this, at least for me, this was a moment of like, is he going to be like Barry?
Right.
And is Fuchs also trying to assess, can I groom this kid to be like Barry? I don't know if that's what's going through Fuchs's head. I would argue no. But in that moment where you see how much like his father he is, it's, oh shit, are we about to start the cycle again?
Interesting.
Yeah. But in this moment, Hank stops crying and he calls off the deal.
Yep. Here we go.
And all hell breaks loose.
No shit.
Do you have any special notes on this gun battle before I get into it?
Let's see. Well, I do have leading up to that. We do some real intense close-ups.
Yeah.
On their faces, specifically on Hank's face, I think. And yeah, he's completely lost all cool at this point.
Yeah.
I did also note that on his, he has sort of like a mini return monologue to Fuchs's monologue where he's like trying to clap back at him. And he says, one of the last lines he says is, I just wanted to be safe.
Yeah.
And to me, I wanted to catch your opinion on this because to me it sounded like he dropped into an accent for a second. Like a different accent. As though he's been talking, like as though that was his original accent and he's been speaking with a different accent this whole time.
I didn't notice that.
It felt to me like reverting to the child, like the inner child version of him or something.
Oh.
So I just wondered if you knew if he had a different accent before or okay. Yeah. Maybe I was just mishearing it, but I did pick up on that and I was like, oh, that was an interesting choice for the actor to make.
But even even if it is just him reverting back to like this inner child.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like the line, I just wanted to be safe. I mean, come on. Which is,
it's really hard not to sympathize with Hank in that moment.
Yeah.
Like,
I was definitely getting that. I was like, I feel like I felt like I was supposed to sympathize with him.
But you're supposed to feel conflicted about it too. Because even in the context of the scene, he had his boyfriend murdered, the love of his life, as he even says.
Right. Which murdered. I didn't know that.
Yeah. But, so it's tough. It's messy.
Yeah. Intense close-ups. And then, we do the shootout. I wrote, this is the longest shot ever.
Yeah. It's a long ass shot.
It is a long fucking shot. And then they do a very slow dolly shot or something to get him out of the building. But it's the longest shot ever.
Yeah. So gunfight breaks out. And like really quick, just to recap this, everyone is either dead or seriously injured.
Yeah.
Except for Sally, Fuchs, and John. Yeah. Because
Sally dies behind a pillar.
Yeah. As soon as Fuchs pulls out a gun, Sally is the first to react and dies behind a pillar.
Yeah.
And as soon as the shots start going off, Fuchs jumps on top of John.
Yes, I did notice that.
And pulls him to the ground. And he lays on top of John.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get, it's a wide shot.
Yep.
So we can see everybody in this one shot.
Yep.
You see all the guns go off.
Yep.
there's a grenade that gets thrown.
Yep.
It goes off. Bodies fly.
Yeah.
The shot's still in a wide shot.
Yep.
And it just sits there. And you see the pools of blood start to spread.
There are some guys that like slightly start trying to move.
Mm-hmm. You hear groans of pain.
Yep. You get some of the sound starts to filter in.
Yep. And as Amanda said, there's this dolly. It eventually does start to move.
Yeah.
Very slowly. Sally crawls out from behind the pillar and
first, Fuchs gets John up.
Yes.
Fuchs is the first one to get up, basically. He's the only one to get up.
Yeah.
With John. And he's like immediately trying to be like, okay, kid, like, let's
We're gonna get out
go.
of
Like, look at the ground.
He covers John's eyes.
Yeah, he kind of protectively creates a shield with his body and like kind of just shuffles him out.
Mm-hmm. Making sure he can't see what's going on around.
Right. Like he's like, look down, don't
we're
look.
Seeing.
Yeah, we're seeing everything. And then I didn't see Sally at first. I rewatched this like 5 times. And I didn't see her the first like 3 or 4 times. But you do actually see them walk past her. But mostly you hear her. Mm-hmm. Like one of the first, once like you're hearing some groans and whatever. And then as they start moving, eventually you hear Sally call John's name. But you kind of don't know where she is. But then like in one of my rewatches, I was like, oh, she's there behind the pillar. That's where she was.
And in the foreground of the shot, you just have these maimed bodies. Like missing limbs. Like it's gruesome.
Oh yeah, there's a straight up dude with his leg off.
Yeah.
Right by Fuchs.
And I had never noticed this until this rewatch. I think it's the dude that's missing his leg. Mm-hmm. His friend is like shaking him, going like, dude, come on, dude, wake up.
I think it's a different dude, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But like, there is no machismo in this scene.
No.
Whatsoever.
Yeah.
It is brutal. And you see it all.
And it's fast and it's over.
It's fast and it's only from one shot.
Yeah.
It is the most action that we're getting in this episode.
Yep.
And the camera does not move. We do not get multiple angles. Nothing. No. You are not allowed to flinch away from this.
No.
And you are not allowed to glorify it. There is nothing cool about this scene.
No, it's just intense.
Yeah. But yeah, so Fuchs covers John's eyes and walks him out of the building.
Yep. And we finally cut.
Yeah, and this is where I'll say, because we're about to see Fuchs exit the scene, this is where I say Fuchs is a fucking liar. He is a man with a heart.
Okay.
Because he jumped on top of John. That was his first priority after shooting Hank.
Yeah, yeah. After he started the fight, to be fair.
And he made sure John basically didn't get fucked up by that violence. He tried to protect John from this cycle
as
of
much
violence.
as possible.
Yeah. And so even though he says, I am a man with no heart, I think there is a part of Fuchs that feels like he bears some responsibility for this.
Yeah.
And needs to play somewhat of a protector role in the way that he failed Barry. And so even though, Fuchs is the one giving this great speech about owning your truth and, drop all the bullshit, drop the mask, admit who you are, I don't think he does.
So then are you saying is that who he is the protector, or is that another mask he wears to like make himself feel some type of way?
I think that's the question.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, one of the themes that Barry really plays with is what is the truth?
Yeah.
And not, what is the true story, but what is the truth of who we are?
Like inner truth. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we go back to Barry.
Yeah. And so
this is kind of funny again.
This
actually.
moment. This is such a ridiculous moment.
Yeah.
Okay. We're in the car with Barry. He pulls up. He's in the parking lot. And he says a quick little prayer.
Yeah. Out loud to himself. God. Yep. Oh, well, to God. Yeah.
I wrote the whole thing down.
Hit me.
Because it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
All right, everybody, brothers and sisters and NBs, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Put your hands together.
All right, Barry says, Lord, I'm going to die tonight. Please give me the strength to sacrifice myself so that my son can live a long and pious life, and that by doing this, all my sins will be washed away, and I will be redeemed in your eyes, and I'll be able to sit next to you in the kingdom of heaven for all of eternity. Amen.
In one breath. Wow.
I'm sorry. It's just the scene, this prayer, all of this. It's just so ridiculous.
It's wild.
And it's, at least to me, it was a moment where I was like, I lost all faith in Barry.
Yeah.
Because him thinking he can be redeemed
at this point
and have all of his sins washed away by this one act of heroism.
Yeah. At this point, I was starting to get, like, has he broken psychologically vibes? You know?
Yeah.
I was like, so has he ever done anything else religious in the show? I should ask.
No.
Okay, that's interesting because...
Well, no, I should clarify that. When they're raising John, there's a couple of scenes of them in their domestic life. Barry is very religious in the way that he's trying to raise John.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense because the vibe I got from this was that he has turned towards religion as like a way to justify his actions, basically.
I would say yes.
Yeah, and he's like totally bought into this idea of being redeemed. He's searching for redemption.
Yeah.
But he's doing it in the wrong place.
Yes, and that's like, that is, I think, the great irony of this scene. He is asking for redemption while covered in guns.
Yeah, covered in guns. He's a, like, he thinks he's about to go fuck shit up.
Yes.
And it's funny the way the line reads too, honestly, because it starts out okay. Mm-hmm. Like, he's like, please give me the strength to sacrifice myself. So at first you're like, oh, okay, he knows he's gonna die, and like he thinks like this is the last, you know, he has to go save his son, like this is his last like act.
Oh, it's so noble, it's so nice.
So my son can live a long and pious life, and then it just starts to go downhill. That by doing this, all my sins will be washed away, and I will be redeemed in your eyes, and I'll be able to sit next to you in the kingdom of heaven for all eternity. Amen. Like, it turns so quickly into his self-centeredness.
Yes.
And yeah, so it's
proof that Barry is just as self-absorbed as Sally.
Everybody else. Yeah, it's a nice piece of writing.
Yeah. Yeah, and just thinking he can be redeemed through violence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he's literally like asking to be baptized in blood. It's
and like
ridiculous.
Also, like, I'll be able to sit next to you in the kingdom of heaven for all of it. Like, bro, like, not even just get into heaven, like, I'm gonna be in the right hand of God. Like, bruh.
Like, you're really seeing that Barry really, really, really wants to be the hero of the story.
Yeah. This was my first indication of full delusion from Barry. Yeah. And we're gonna get more delusion later.
Yes. Yeah. So we have a quick scene of Barry is ready to go in and fight. Yep. But Fuchs is outside with John. John runs up, hugs Barry. There's a very tense moment where Fuchs and Barry share a look.
Oh boy, is there?
Yeah.
You got notes on that?
Not really, because I would say more if we're talking about the whole show, but just for this episode, it's just a nice wrap up to their relationship.
Okay. I have a few notes. Do you want to keep going for the scene?
No, go for it.
I just really enjoyed this from like a acting perspective. Again, like, that's kind of one of the themes of the show is like love letter to acting. Like, acting is powerful and also ridiculous. And yeah, I wrote, what is up with them? Because yeah, I don't have the context obviously of like what their full relationship development was. But I just wrote a lot of acting happening right now. Mm-hmm. We do multiple
shots back and
forth between their expressions.
With no dialogue.
They say nothing. The microexpressions on these dudes are crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. There's a lot happening. Props to them. I'm obsessed with microexpressions. I think it's so cool when and this is going to be relevant for a future show we're going to talk about.
Shit.
If you know it.
Spoilers.
Don't spoil it. I want Campy to be surprised.
No, I want the spoilers.
But I find microexpressions super fascinating, and I'm not necessarily good at reading them, but I can tell when they're being shown to me. So I'd love to go back and potentially maybe rewatch this again and try and figure out if I can figure out what microexpressions they're doing.
And then you can tell me all about it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like a good 3, 4, 5 shots back and forth where they just have a whole conversation with their faces. I love that shit, you guys. That's crack to me.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, and then Fuchs just nods and dips.
The way he dips, though, I am going to point this out.
Yeah.
He turns 180 and runs into the darkness away from the camera. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit comical.
I mean...
Because, okay... There's this one thing that Edgar Wright does in his movies where he has things enter or exit the frame in funny ways.
Okay, sure.
And there's a scene in Hot Fuzz where Nick Frost's character, like, he yells at Simon Pegg, "You don't know how to shut off." And he turns around and he runs away just straight back, and you're just left watching him run away. And it just sits there and you're like, where is he going? And I had the same vibe with Fuchs just running into the darkness.
Yeah. I get
like,
that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought, you know, it's on the nose, I would say. Mm-hmm. He turns around and runs into the darkness.
Black. Yeah.
And then disappears.
He disappears in a shadow.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have too much more to say about that.
It's
just
the last we see of Fuchs.
Yeah, it's the last we see of Fuchs. He had a whole conversation with Barry just with facial expressions, and that's it.
Yeah. And so one of Barry's father figure's mentors, directors, has exited his life stage right, pursued by a bear. So yeah, we end this scene back inside the lobby with all the dead bodies, and we got Hank and his final moments. It's very sad. He's slowly bleeding out and grabs the statue's hand that is Cristobal, just dies. Yeah. If you've seen the show, it's a very sad moment.
It's sad. I did write down that it looks like a Renaissance painting.
Yeah.
So there is that. That was nice.
And what's very interesting is all the diegetic sound cuts out.
Yeah.
After you do hear Sally reunite with John and Barry in the background.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, they don't even show it.
No.
You just hear it.
You just hear Sally yelling their names?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're stuck on the shot with Hank on the statue bleeding out and he's dead. All the diegetic sound cuts out and you're left with birds, crickets / bugs, and wind.
I don't know if I noticed that.
It's, to me, it did not stand out until this watch through.
Interesting.
Where I was like, because I was wondering, a part of
me, because
then
it fades out.
Yeah, because I was like, is this being used? Because what you'll do in editing a lot of times, sorry,
No, go for it.
I'm doing a poor job of trying to talk about this. What you'll often do in editing to smooth transitions is use sound as a bridge. Okay. So you'll have sound either play beyond the cut or play before the cut.
Right.
And it's just a way that when the thing does cut, your brain is able to adjust quicker.
Right.
And so when I heard the bugs and the birds and the wind, part of me thought that was going to lead us to the next shot.
Yeah, right. Which would make sense.
Outside. Yeah, but instead it just fades to black and that sound fades out.
Interesting.
And so for Hank's death scene, we're not getting the sound of what's actually going on. And so it's something that I find both very peaceful, because you're given this like Elysian fields. He's with the birds and Greek gods and Cristobal.
Yeah.
But because that wind sound is blowing through it, there's something very hollow and very empty about it. And it's hard to really put my finger on what makes this work. But it's one of those things that you're like, it just works.
Yeah. You know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I definitely did not catch that myself.
I recommend go back and
I
just
might have
check
to go
it out, because once you notice it, it's striking.
You can't unnotice it. Yeah. Before we continue, I have a note.
Yeah.
On this statue, but I don't know if I should say it.
Do it. Just say it.
I did not have any context for the character of Cristobal, and I did not know that's who it was. So when they walked into this room with this gold statue in the middle, do you know what I thought of?
No.
My brain went, is that a Bronze Fonz reference? Yeah, and I have no excuse. And no one's gonna know why we're laughing unless you're from Milwaukee. Or you know Henry Winkler, and Happy Days.
Mm-hmm. We're just gonna leave it a mystery.
Wait, you might have to edit that out though.
No, I am not. It is staying in. It is no longer Cristobal. Hank is dying in the arms of Henry Winkler. Fucking deal.
I literally wrote, what is the statue? Is the statue the Bronze Fonz? Question mark, question mark. Is it all caps? Oh, man.
I am never going to watch this again.
I'm sorry, everybody. I'm so sorry.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. Woof. All right, moving on.
So now we're in a hotel room. Sally is scrolling through news articles about Jean facing murder charges for Janice Moss's murder. And eventually cut to Sally lying in bed with Barry, and John is in between them.
Yep.
Sally and Barry have this conversation, and Sally tells him Jean's going to jail, and she asks Barry to turn himself in.
Yep.
And after a pause,
I wrote this down too.
what does he say?
He says, this man says, dead ass, I don't think that's what God wants for me.
And Sally's reaction, she just sighs and closes her eyes.
Oh my, I almost fell over.
Really?
I could not believe it. And again, here we're back with the delusion. So for a hot second, I feel like they're setting this up to be like a sort of emotional, understanding between them, of him to be like, yes, okay,
It's
like
a come to Jesus moment.
yes.
He comes to Jesus in the wrong way.
Yeah, he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it at all.
No, he thinks that because he did not die, he was willing to die, he was ready to die.
Yep.
But because he did not die, that clearly God has forgiven him.
God has
and
plans.
he has been redeemed.
Yep.
And it's some bullshit.
Yeah. And to be clear, we are not coming after anybody who believes in God or has like religious, religion in their life. But Barry, he's not going about it in the right way.
No, he is weaponizing religion to just justify his behavior.
Shitty shit.
Yeah. Where have we seen that before? Oh my God, we need to do an episode on midnight mass. I gotta write that down right now. Talking about religious characters using religion to justify bullshit. It's a TV show. It's a one-off limited series.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
We're in the hotel room.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, and I think too, it's just Barry, thinking he can be redeemed. It's just a good portrait of human nature. Like, no one wants to see themselves as the bad guy or the villain, right? And this show's just, really hitting you over the head with it.
Yep.
Sally responds to this the right way.
She literally turns her back on him.
Yes. Well, first she tells him the only way to be redeemed is to take responsibility for what you did. And the only way you can do that is by turning yourself in. And then she turns away from him. And at least to me too, like there's almost a sense of dread in Sally's face as he's like, trying to justify why he shouldn't turn himself in. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a moment that Sally realizes she's still a hostage. Like just because she's away from NoHo Hank doesn't mean that she's still not in an incredibly dangerous situation.
Okay.
And I think because she's not willing to confront him more and push back more just shows how terrified she is of him.
Okay.
Because she used to call him out on shit. She used to push back on him, and like she was a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
And now she's got no fight left in her against him.
Right.
He just terrifies her.
Mm. Well, and like I think you had this in your notes too. She's tired.
Yeah.
She's just like done with the fun. So I think to me it read she's like she's still telling him what he needs to do.
Right.
And she's correct about what he needs to do.
She is offering him his last chance.
Yeah, and you're right. There's no fight involved. And to me that said like she's just accepted that he's going to do what he's going to do. And presumably she's either already decided that she's going to take John and run, or she's made the decision in that moment.
Yeah. I think it's in that moment that she makes the decision.
Yeah. So to me, I kind of read, I don't know that she thinks she's a hostage still. I just read sort of like defeat and resignation. There's only one way this can go, and I'm not going to be around.
Well, yeah, and I should put it that way. Like, as long as she stays with Barry, she's a hostage to Barry.
Sure.
Yeah. Her only way out of that situation is to leave.
Yeah. He is like the anchor that will be dragging her and her son down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So spoilers. Barry wakes up the next morning and Sally and John are gone.
Yeah.
And yeah, so just like her last relationship, Sally disappears in the middle of the night with, no note, nothing, just vanishes.
Okay.
And good for you, Sally.
Yeah.
Good
Get out of there,
for
girl.
You.
Get out of there. So I did write for the scene that Barry must sleep like the dead because, I mean, or maybe, honestly, maybe Sally's just super skilled at leaving quietly in the dark.
Yeah.
But whatever. He wakes up and they're gone.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it could be an indication that like literally he's so at peace with everything that happened,
he thinks everything's totally fine.
that he's like, I can sleep fine.
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. He has no idea.
Just completely
he's just
unbothered.
so, disconnected.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So we're over at Gene's house now.
Yep.
He is locked in his bedroom looking at websites about how he's going to go to jail.
Freaking out.
Yeah.
Internally.
His friends in the hallway saying that, he's here for him. He's just going to step out real quick.
Yeah.
He's subtly packing up a suitcase.
Yeah. That was pretty funny.
I laughed so hard.
Yeah.
Seeing that, because he sounds so genuine through the door that he's just going to step out and be right back. And then
Yeah.
it cuts
He says
to him
something
with
about
the
like, I
suitcase.
broke your Vitamix.
Yeah. Like, what?
Okay.
And before Gene's friend can leave, Barry burst into the house looking
Doesn't he
for
open the
Sally.
door and Barry's there?
Yes.
Or yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like a nice like little
Jump scare.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Barry just looks deranged.
Yeah, Barry's in full delusion mode at this point. From where we started with him praying in the car, and then to him saying, I don't think that's God's plan for me, or whatever he said, the crazy line, and now him looking just totally unhinged at this guy's house.
Yeah, and Gene, at least in the moment, stays locked in his bedroom as Barry is frantically looking around the house for Sally and John.
Right, he thinks Sally and John are there, which why would they be there?
I mean, Sally and Cousineau had a good relationship.
Okay.
And Sally did mention earlier in the episode that she went and spoke to Gene earlier.
Okay.
So I think, he's just grasping at straws.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Gene's friend is trying to talk Barry down.
Right.
And trying to talk him into turning himself in to spare Gene from having to go to prison.
This guy is the voice of reason.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this guy's doing a great job of just being like, he's taken it back at first, but then he like kind of immediately turns into like, he's like the voice you would talk to a wild animal with. I don't know. I was just like kind of mildly impressed by this guy trying to deal with Barry.
Yeah. And what's really interesting too, direction wise about this, as he's trying to talk Barry down and talk Barry into turning himself in, the camera holds on Barry.
Right.
And slowly pushes in.
Yep.
And so you see
that's a good point. Yeah. You don't see the guy talking. You just hear him.
And so you can't see what else is happening in the scene.
Right.
You are focused solely on Barry as Barry is focused solely on himself.
Yeah.
And you see the wheels start to turn in Barry's brain as he's starting to calm down.
Yep.
And Barry says, call the cops. I'm going to turn myself... Gunshot.
Yeah, there is a shot or two, a cross cut to Cousineau. Like, he has a box with a gun.
Yeah, Chekhov's gun in a box.
Chekhov's literal gun.
Yes.
Yeah, so you do see that. And I don't remember, but that's before we kind of hold on his face for a minute.
Yeah, so you are being prompted for that to happen.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of lead up.
Yeah. But you're still not 100% sure,
I thought Gene was going to shoot himself.
Oh.
At least the first time I watched this.
Well, that is kind of also where his friend goes with it, too.
And Gene has tried before.
He what?
He's tried before to shoot himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's a pattern.
With that gun.
Well, okay. Okay.
Spoilers. Yeah, he shoots Barry first in the chest, and Barry falls back onto a chair.
Yeah.
And just looks up at Gene. We do get a cut of Gene like in the room menacing the gun at Barry walking forward.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And Barry's in the chair and he just says, "Oh, wow."
Yeah. And then bang.
Bang. Right to the
bang,
head.
cut to black.
Cut to black.
Yeah.
Immediately. The scene does fade back in. We get a shot of the couch and Gene comes into the shot and sits down on the couch. So we get him in a medium shot.
Mm-hmm.
And the camera slowly pulls back.
Yep.
And it's like like a paint. It's like a stage.
Yes,
it's like
exactly.
a stage, like what you would see in a theater. Like you are looking head on at the scene. You are eye level with Gene.
Yeah.
You're not looking up or down. You're not looking at the sides from an angle. You are just straight forward looking. And as it pulls back, Barry's dead body comes into frame at a 90-degree angle from Gene. So it's very staged. It feels like a stage.
Ooh, you know what I just realized? This is kind of mimicking our cold open.
Yeah.
From the pilot.
Yeah, it does.
Where, you know, we're holding on the hotel room. And then, I guess in that case, it pans over, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't pull away. But
you're still getting a guy who doesn't seem fazed
kind of
by
the
a
same
dead
effect.
Body.
Yeah.
Next to a dead body with a gunshot wound to the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're kind of coming full circle of like, now it's Barry.
Circle
Who's
of
the dead
violence. Guy? Cycle of violence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's so cool about this shot is what I mentioned earlier about sound editing and how you'll use sound to ease you into the next shot.
Yep.
You hear applause.
Yeah.
In this shot.
Dude, I thought we were doing some meta shit for a second. I thought that suddenly this was going to be a show that Barry and everybody in the acting class was putting on.
Right?
And I was shook for a second. And then it wasn't that.
No, but like it's so good.
Yeah, it's real
so good. There's directing, editing, acting, everything about this show just hits it out of the park. And this is one of those moments where
you're like Truman Show.
You're kind of left speechless by what they're doing here, and
I was.
It just works.
Yeah,
it works so well. And yeah, we get the sound of applause, and it's not people clapping for Barry being dead.
Nope.
We're suddenly in an auditorium.
Yep.
And what looks to be a bunch of high school students come into the foreground and are taking a bow. And Sally comes onto the stage and, you know, gets a bouquet of flowers and is saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you" to everybody. We also see John, who's now a teenager.
Yep.
In the audience.
He's like at least 14.
Yeah, like 14, 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been, 4 to 5 years.
Sally is leaving the theater. People are congratulating her.
Yep.
There's this little moment where a guy starts chatting her up and asks her on a date.
Yeah.
And she just goes, no. Yeah. With just like this smile on her face. And I just love this moment for Sally so much because while it does suck that her decision came from trauma, she seems very happy and very at peace with her choice to be alone.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. And I think it's a moment of Sally owning her story in a way that is true and taking agency over what she can. And again, it does suck that comes from a place of trauma, but it is cool to see her making the most of it.
Yeah. Not having a lot of context about her, I did wonder if her saying no was because her and John were still implicated somehow in some wrongdoings and she's like just trying not to get involved with anybody. But I think, yeah, I mean, like the way she's just like, nope, I'm good.
Like immediately, no hesitation.
Yeah. And yeah, she doesn't like try to apologize or anything. No. Like she just leaves.
Yeah, no explanation.
Yeah. She does then say to John, like, was the show good?
Yeah. So there's still a little bit of insecurity there, right?
Yeah. And she's like, it's good, right? And he was like, yeah.
Yeah.
But like clearly she has not asked anyone's else opinion for this, it seems. She just cares about his opinion.
Yeah.
So, I think that's valid.
Yeah. And she also, like, despite this whole experience, John's like, hey, can I go stay at a friend's? She's immediately like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, she trusts him.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
they have a good relationship.
They have a good relationship.
Yeah.
They're in a good place.
Yeah.
They've both come a long way from all the shit that's happened.
Yeah. And I think kind of what you said before about her, previously having been just as self-absorbed as everyone else, and having this acting dream like everyone else, and now she's teaching acting at like a high school in presumably the Midwest. It's snowing, by the way.
Yeah, it's snowing. Coming back to that snow.
Yeah,
but in a positive way.
Yeah. Again, full circle a little bit. So she's just kind of totally let go of kind of her big star dreams, I guess.
Yeah, her ego.
Her ego, basically. And she's still doing something she loves, clearly, and she's good at it. But there's no like fame and fortune and glory really involved outside of, her being sort of liked and respected in this small town, wherever they are.
Yeah.
So I like that for her.
Yeah. I love Sally's arc. I love just where she eventually gets to in the end. It seems like she's in a good place. Fuck yeah, Sally.
Yeah.
And fuck the haters. Okay, so before we get into this last scene, before we get into it, because I got a lot to say. So I'm going to quick touch on what the two central themes are that I keep alluding to. So the one that I've talked about a lot already is truth. Yep. As Jean says in the first episode, acting is truth. And this whole question of, is Jean right or wrong? Is acting really truth? And I think essentially there's kind of a double meaning, right? Like you have acting and like the performance. I'm going to perform who I think I should be in this performance of the truth.
Sure. And
each of the characters in the show is performing a different version. In a very obvious way, you have Barry Berkman, the assassin, and everybody in the assassin world calls him Berkman. And then you have Barry Block, the actor, right? So you have these people putting on performances of who they should be and whether or not that's truth. And then you also have acting as in literal action. And is that the truth? Do our actions actually convey who we really are?
Okay.
And so that's why I say, like, Fuchs says he's a man with no heart, but his actions betray that.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I think the show plays a lot with the ideas of interpersonal truth.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And truth on the whole, which we'll get into in this last scene.
Yeah.
The other major theme that I think the show does really well is violence in Hollywood specifically.
Okay.
And our portrayal of
violence.
Yeah, of violence. And again, what we're offended by versus what we should be offended by. Again, like
guns.
Him being shocked by Sally's monologue, being more surprised by her saying "suck my dick" than some Chechen mobsters being like, "Can't you just shoot him in the head?"
Yeah.
Why do you want to stab him in the balls?
Yeah.
But even the way that the violent scenes are shot, like that violent scene that was in this episode.
Yeah.
Again, no glory about it, no music. No cool action shots, no slow-mo.
No.
Just murder.
Yep.
It's just straight up murder.
Violence, yeah.
And I'm going to get into this theme about portrayals of violence in Hollywood after we talk about this last scene. So, do you want to describe this last scene?
Do I? Okay, so before we leave Sally, John asks her if he can go hang out with his friend Eric. And I do want to say real quick that she gets in her car and it's like heavily snowing. She does not brush any snow off her car.
Irresponsible driver.
Irresponsible.
You could tell this was written by a bunch of people in LA.
Exactly. I was like, girl, where's your snow brush?
Hire us as consultants, damn it.
Anyway, there is I wonder if I can't remember if the shot is here or comes later, where they do show her in the car at one point. Her last shot,
her driving home,
and no dialogue or anything, but she just like looks over at the flowers on her front seat, and that's it. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Okay, yes, I do. I think it's meant to symbolize.
And does it come here or is it later?
No, it's before we get to this last
before
scene.
The movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
The way that I read this, as usually in the passenger seat, you'd have a significant other in a situation like this. And instead she has a bouquet of flowers. She has a symbol of praise.
Okay.
And I think it's her realizing that her happiness and her peace isn't in partnership, but in being able to be praised for what she does.
In her, her work,
in her work.
Her career. Okay.
I think it's her just being happy and content that she's alone.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
But hey, if you have other ideas about that, let us know.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to hear them. I don't have like the shot by shot breakdown for this scene.
That's okay.
Okay.
We don't need it.
So basically, John and Eric go over to Eric's house, I guess, and they're going to watch this movie. And Eric says a couple of times, "Are you ready for this?" So I was like, are they watching some like horror movie they're not supposed to be watching? Maybe that could very well be the case.
In a way, it is a horror movie.
Yeah. So they end up watching this movie called The Mask Collector. And it looks like they made a movie about Barry. Mm-hmm. It's a bad movie. It's a B movie or a TV movie, something pretty bad. And he's basically been like made into an action hero. The dialogue is so terrible. I can't even. I didn't write anything down.
It's just bad.
I wrote it's like Taken. You know?
Yeah.
Liam Neeson. It feels like that, like very, I don't know, like macho action movie. Mm-hmm. And, you know, basically Barry is portrayed as this, you know, down on his luck soldier. Like basically we get, you know, a lot of the beats that we got in the pilot.
Yeah, he's a lonely soldier looking for a community.
Lonely soldier looking for a community, finds acting.
Yeah. He just wants to be good.
Yeah, he just wants to be
take
good.
his pain and use it for good.
Kusino is there mentoring him.
Yeah, technically so far all true.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah. And then you take it from there. I don't remember the full plot.
And then it's Kusino. It's Gene Kusino who's the one that's involved with the Chechen mobsters.
Right.
And the movie,
for no apparent reason.
Yeah, this movie version of events, like it's Gene who kills Ryan Madison. It's Gene who kills Moss. Barry is being forced into this by Gene Kusino.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it jumps around a lot through different scenes that we see in Barry, but in a very different way. Where Gene's the villain. There is one moment where Barry gives the Macbeth monologue, and it's so shitty.
Yeah, I wrote so Shakespeare ?
And I am like, this scene made me so mad, and it's supposed to, but like, first of all, terrible job giving the monologue. Everyone acts all impressed. It was a horrible monologue. Second of all, Sally is the one who gave the monologue, and they gave it to Barry in this adaptation. And I'm like, of course, giving women, like not giving them credit, but giving it to the men.
Sure.
And then Sally is just like, oh my God, that was so good.
Yeah.
I'm so blown away by you. And I'm like, God damn it, Hollywood. But you know that's true. You know that's what they do, and that's why it makes me so mad. Anyway, yeah, Barry ends up in jail being framed for the murder of Moss. He makes a dramatic, heroic escape.
Yep.
Sally and John are being held hostage, and he dramatically shoots their way out of it like Rambo.
That was the Taken vibes for me.
Yeah. And then in the end, movie Barry and movie Gene face off at the theater, and Gene shoots Barry dead. Technically true.
Yeah.
And then the movie ends with these two text lines on screen.
Oh, yeah.
Gene Kusino is currently serving life in prison for the murders of Janice Moss and Barry Berkman. PFC Barry Berkman was laid to rest in Arlington National Cemetery with full honors.
I almost did a spit take. It was crazy.
We get the last shot of just John sniffling and smiling.
Yeah.
Remembering
he's like
his father as a
touched.
hero. So
that's it.
Thoughts? Let me hear it.
I mean, this was a choice. I mean, again, we're going back to truth. What's the truth? Mm-hmm. It is also kind of funny. So again, just sneaking in a little bit of humor here at the end. But definitely like very ironic. And, you know, it's like, in a way, it's like Barry did get to become the hero.
He got his redemption.
In a way. And
he had his sins wiped clean.
Yep. And I guess in fairness to him or whatever, he was going to confess. He was going to turn himself in.
Because, okay, sorry.
Okay.
Barry has a lot of chances to turn away and do the right thing.
Okay.
He has tons of opportunities, and there are tons of times he says, starting now, I'm going to do the right thing.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I think his ending is one of those endings where it's like, was this the time?
Yeah.
Was this his moment?
Right.
Or was just him being Barry?
Yeah. Interesting. But yeah, he gets to be the hero at the end of the day. Do we want that? I don't know. You have a lot more on this than I do.
Yes, I wrote paragraphs. Yeah, so this ending is such a gut punch. And I think like at first glance you might want to argue that this is like a winners write the history scenario.
Yeah.
But no, that's not actually what's going on here, because who's the winner?
I was gonna say there is no winner.
There's no winner.
If there is a winner, it's Sally. Maybe.
No, I would argue the winner is the people who made the movie and are making money off the movie.
True.
They're the ones who are actually writing the history here in this case.
Yeah.
And, Gene doesn't win. He's in prison.
No.
Barry, in a weird, twisted way, wins his redemption, but he's still dead.
Right.
Hank is dead. Fuchs fucking
is gone.
Who knows where he is.
Peaced out.
Yeah, and Sally and John at least are living a quiet, normal life in the Midwest.
But they went through some shit.
Yeah, but they're not getting anything out of this movie,
Right.
So
well, yeah, I guess we don't cover that.
No. So really, it's just Hollywood that gets to make bank off of this story. Nobody else is the winner here except for them.
Yeah, we also do get the side note that Sally does not want John to see this movie.
Yeah.
And he's, watching it without her permission.
Mm-hmm.
So that is interesting as well.
That is, yeah. And just like, what is she trying to protect him from?
Well, right. And I think kind of goes back to what you're talking about, which is like Barry got this like hero portrayal, but like, does he deserve it?
Yeah. Is that why Sally doesn't want him to see it? Because it's a lie?
Yeah.
And I think too, like this whole ending, in my opinion, is an indictment on America's obsession with violence and glorifying violence and glorifying rogue revenge tales. And like, we like these neat, sensational stories of good versus evil. And, the evil guy it's very obvious who he is and that he is evil and he gets his comeuppance in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just this question too of like, what stories does Hollywood choose to adopt? And how do they choose to adopt them?
Yeah.
Because again, like that whole Macbeth speech of like giving that moment to Barry,
right,
because it fits their narrative.
Yeah.
Rather than playing the truth, which it was that was how Sally broke out into Hollywood, was that Macbeth speech.
Okay.
So yeah, taking that from her, literally silencing her by not giving the lines.
Yeah.
And yeah, giving women success to men. And it reminds me of the ending of the book Things Fall Apart. Have you read that by Chinua Achebe?
I have not.
Okay. So in that book, it's basically told from the perspective of an Igbo tribesman.
Okay.
During the time of colonialism.
Yeah.
And the book ends with one of the colonizers in a single paragraph summing up that man's life. So basically summing up the entire book in a single paragraph.
Yeah.
And that's how this ending feels to me. We're summing up the entire TV show in this 5-minute movie montage.
Yeah.
And in Things Fall Apart, it's used to kind of show how, based on who's telling the story and what agenda they have, what the version of the truth becomes.
Right. And like how reductionist it can get.
Yes. And how we literally strip people and their lives and the meaning of their lives away so we can have something that fits our narrative and that is sensational. And then Barry just takes this very messy, morally dark gray story and rips out all the humanity of it in order to create a narrative of a hero.
Yeah.
Where we are glorifying the violence of it all.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think like it's why we love shows like Barry and Dexter and Breaking Bad, because in a way we just love violence. And I think Barry is just trying to highlight that.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Let me clarify that. We love violence as long as we dress it up as a good guy.
Okay.
And I think that's what Barry is trying to highlight. Yeah, so that's
thesis.
my take.
Thesis made.
That's my thesis. Thank you for listening.
I like it. I think also, do you think also it just brings up just kind of a general point that there's always an unreliable narrator?
I think so.
Yeah. Like it's no matter what story you're telling,
you're never going to get the truth.
Yeah. And like, is that what they're saying? Is that at the end of the day, truth is always subjective?
Yeah. I mean, I would argue.
Yeah.
Which is why I think Fuchs' speech to me is so interesting when he's talking about dropping the bullshit.
Yeah.
And being honest.
I think also at, the last shot with John as well, he, in this moment at least, is kind of choosing to buy into the truth that his father was a hero, or at least living in that for a moment. And it doesn't seem super clear what he knows or what he doesn't know.
No. But I mean, he was held hostage not that long ago. Like, he has to have some idea.
Yeah. Well, and like she told, Sally told him, like, your dad killed people.
Yeah.
So who knows? But, in this moment, it seems like the truth he's choosing to believe is this hero version of Barry. Yeah, man. Crazy stuff. It's a cool show.
Bold choice for an ending. The whole season
very
4
bold.
was a very bold choice.
Yeah.
It's really, the whole show is a departure from traditional TV shows. Yeah. But this ending especially.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And
I
enjoyed it.
I mean, you like.
Oh, and they end on like the bugle.
Yes.
Yeah. That was wild to me.
Like, the thing is, though, with these shows, because the whole time I was watching Barry, because I watched it as it came out. And, I keep bringing up Dexter and Breaking Bad, but I had both of them in mind as I was watching this, because I'm like, this can either end like Dexter, which is Dexter got away. Spoiler.
Spoilers for Dexter, sorry.
Or it can end like Breaking Bad, where, he has this big heroic moment and dies being a hero.
Yeah.
And Barry went a completely different direction with it. He died not being a hero, but got to be a hero somehow still.
Right,
I like it.
A false hero.
So, before we get into final thoughts, episode rating?
Episode rating. You first.
Okay. You're not going to get this if you haven't seen Barry.
Okay.
But I give this 50 out of 50 with Cristobal.
50 out of 50 with Cristobal.
50-50 with Cristobal.
People are looking at us. 50-50 with a Cristobal. Because Barry's trailing me an RV. Stop.
I will play you that scene.
Okay.
After this, I promise.
Somewhat related, but the complete opposite take of that, I would say. I'm giving this one out of 1 bronze Fonz.
We like to honor Cristobal here at the Show Off Pod.
One way or another. Yeah, once that thought crossed my brain, it didn't leave. So
I'm never going to look at that statue the same. So thank you.
Here we are.
Yeah. So final thoughts. What do you think of Barry as a concept of a show? Would you watch more?
Yeah, definitely a crazy show. I love the slowness of it. Like I said before, the slowness and the stillness, just the time they take to just leave you with a single shot and like you have to watch it and pay attention. I'm kind of obsessed with that.
Yeah,
so
shouts out to Bill Hader. Like, fantastic director.
Yeah. Really awesome. And I kind of mentioned this before, but I was thinking about how like this show makes fun of acting, but is also definitely a tribute to acting. Mm-hmm. And I think they strike a good balance. I mean, I have only seen 2 episodes, but I think they strike a pretty good balance between playing with both of those things. So, they're poking fun at actors, but then they're also kind of like, you guys don't totally suck.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's like, and Bill Hader's thought process for this, he liked how dramatic the acting world is, even though stakes aren't that high.
Right.
Like, they are to the actors, but, in the grand scheme.
Yeah. Microexpressions, love that shit. All the slow camera movements, long shots, close-ups. I did kind of think he might die going into the last episode. Like, I don't know. I just had a feeling. Especially once we kind of started getting into some of the clear tone shift.
Yeah.
from, the pilot. And yeah, I like the dramatic irony that he was going to confess and then gets shot anyway. Although, as you said, that was sort of ambiguous.
Yes.
So, yeah, I might come back to the show for sure. And especially that it's so short, relatively.
Yeah, you can watch this in a weekend.
You could bang it out.
if you're committed.
Yeah. And I know that I wouldn't be taking as much time as I did with these 2 episodes, but I don't know, even just knowing, how it started, how it's going, I can see myself getting into it.
Yeah.
So
there are some crazy dramatic moments in season 1.
Yeah.
That just floored me.
Okay.
Yeah. They have left me speechless to this day.
All right. A ringing endorsement.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
Phenomenal. All right. Well, thank you for going on that journey with me.
Yeah.
Amanda. Next time on the show off.
Next time on the show off.
What are we doing?
Are y'all ready? Well, let's just say real quick. So that kind of wraps up our first round of the show off. I have now gone and you've now gone. So rest assured, y'all, that after these 2 episodes, we will never be analyzing 2 episodes of television in a single podcast ever again. It takes so long, you guys.
We've learned our lesson.
Yeah, I think we've both officially learned our lesson on that. That said, our next sort of theme for the next round is our favorite shows. So our favorite shows of all time. And
hard to pick.
What I pick, a drum roll, please. We are going to be watching Leverage.
Oh, god damn. I should have known.
Yeah. Yeah, Leverage is my favorite show ever. It is a drama that aired on TNT. It premiered in 2008, ran for 5 seasons, ended in 2012. A tidy 5 seasons, I would say. It is a con and heist show, which is my shit, you guys.
100% Amanda's not personality. It's up your alley.
Yeah.
You love heists.
I love it. I love it so much. I love cons. I love heists. I hate this IMDb description, just for the record, but I'm going to give it to you. So the description is: a crew of high-tech crooks attempts to steal from wealthy criminals and corrupt businessmen. Yeah, created by Chris Downey and John Rogers. Starring Timothy Hutton as Nate Ford, Gina Bellman as Sophie Devereaux, Christian Kane as Elliot Spencer, Aldous Hodge as Hardison, and Beth Reescraft as Parker.
Ladies and gentlemen, she did that off the dome.
I did. I did like half of it looking at IMDb, and then I was too lazy to click through to the rest of the cast, so I just it's in there. And I went back and forth for a bit on which episode to pick. Hands down, we're definitely coming back to this show. This will not be the last time I talk about this show. But for this first one, we're going to watch season 1, episode 5, The Bank Shot Job.
Ooh.
So yeah, all of the Leverage episode titles are all like the blank job. So this one's The Bank Shot Job. There's the Nigerian job, the inside job, 5 seasons worth. So yeah, we're watching The Bank Shot Job. I'm trying to think if I need to give you any context. I think the only thing I want to tell you is that there's a line from this episode that was used as one of the show's main taglines.
Okay.
So see if you can figure out what the tagline is.
I'm going to be listening for it.
Yeah. I think other than that, I'm not going to give you anything else.
Okay. And I will say, I have watched the pilot with you.
Yeah, I made you watch the pilot a while ago.
So I know the general premise of the show already. I kind of understand the cast vibes a little bit. The one thing I do know that angers me is the pilot was shot in Chicago. And they reset the shooting location for the rest of the show, and I'm so mad about that.
Yeah.
It was so nice to see Chicago being like a city, like the city as the backdrop.
They have the bean and everything.
You always get LA or New York or Vancouver that they call somewhere else, but never Chicago.
Yeah. Season 1,
so sad.
They technically base season 1 out of LA, but they fly around a lot. They travel a lot. But yeah, and then in the later seasons, they're in Boston for a while, and then eventually they end up in Portland, which is the actual shooting location of the show. for most of the show. So yeah, so we're going to do that. And I'm super stoked about it.
All right. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I wanted to watch this show. I've just never gotten around to it.
Yeah.
So now it's a good chance.
It's just a fun time. And I guess I'll say like my version of the IMDb description. It's basically like found family of weirdo thieves and con artists. Basically Robin Hood the rich and try to right the wrongs of corruption and like shady business stuff. They steal from rich guys a lot.
It's a great setup.
Yeah.
Found family, Robin Hood, heist.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, that's all you really need to know right now. And yeah, John Rogers, who is one of the creators of the show and the head writer on the show, is fond of saying that this show is the only anti-capitalist show on television in the last 20 years. And he's probably not wrong about that.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head that would contradict that. But no, I think you're right.
Do with that what you will. And yeah, watch The Bank Shot Job with us. And we're going to talk about it next week.
Woo!
Woo!
Can't wait.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I guess
that's all for us.
That wraps up the show.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for joining us.
Thanks for coming. And we'll catch you next week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Show Off. If you enjoyed this one, go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast and give us your review of our episode pick for this week's pod. You can also email us at theshowoffpod@gmail.com. See you all next week.